Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of the Plan to Reality series. In the first part I showed you my setting out process. In this part I'll show you the fun stuff, the tiling process. Just to recap, we have the plans here with this beautiful hexagon bath shower design with a fully tiled wet area, and it's half tiled around the rest of the room. Last time out we had a look around the room and put some lines around to start tiling. So let's get straight into it. Here I'm mixing the Balflex one, which is a flexible powder adhesive. It's a 5-hour set time and a working time of just over 2 hours. It's a really good strong flexible adhesive, so it's my go-to for most tiling situations. As usual, whatever adhesive you use, just mix it up to the manufacturer's instructions, and I'd recommend using a flexible adhesive. So the spreading. So I'm going to spread the bottom half of the shower here first with the aim of tiling halfway around this area before going up. I'm going to use an 8mm notch trowel for these tiles as they're quite thin with not too much backing on them, and being really small tiles I won't be back edging them either. Try and keep your lines in the same direction as much as you can when spreading, as it helps compact the adhesive for a better bond to the tile. I'll just get a good amount onto the wall and then go over it and straighten it out. Okay, so the first tile is going to go where I drew the 2 lines previously. I'll give them a good push and a wiggle to make sure they get a good connection. I'll aim to get a few tiles on the wall, get them roughly in the right place, then I'll come in with the level to get them vertically and horizontally level before adding the spacers. Being hexagons, they tend to be a bit sizey, so it's best just to work your lines or the level, as the more you put on, your eye is drawn away from the discrepancies. These ones did have a bit of variation in size, but not the worst I've used. And as usual, I'll be using 2mm spacers just to try and keep the joint as small as possible. Obviously, as the tiles are so small we can't use leveling clips either, but the walls are pretty good on this job. That's a really big bonus. Once I'm happy that I'm tiling pretty straight, then I'm good to go to start putting more volume on the wall. If you're looking at tiling something like this for your first time, just take it slowly. The adhesive has a bit of playtime these days. Just work your level and you'll be fine. And of course you can ask me any questions in the comments, guys. Later in the video I'll show you how I cut the tiles, mark and cut holes out of them, so stick around especially for the basin cuts. It's a good one. Okay, so now I'm just left with the cuts in this section. So I'm going to do the shower tray cuts first. You can mark cuts with a tape measure or on the tile. I prefer the tile as it's quicker for me. I'll set the gauge on my Sigma cutter, then I can check the cut fits to them all. Then I can cut them all off the same size. It's good to mention that in tiling we work from a level line. Adhesive or thin set is good enough these days that it holds tiles up pretty well without slippage. For a heavy tile I'd mark my level line down to the bottom course, then I'd work up. You just can't trust the substrate, bath or shower tray to be level, so it's good practice to work from a level line. So I'm just going to measure my side cuts with a tape now and just make sure they're all the same. In my case they were, which is great. Then I'll set the gauge of my cutter and cut them all the same. And for the marking I'm literally just putting a tape to the wall and allowing a joint and a bit of play. So for the side cuts, as we discussed before, with hexagons and herringbone patterns, you wrap the tiles around the corner so it looks like a complete tile. It's quite important that your walls are level upright for this, otherwise the pattern will start skewing out of alignment. Plus if the walls are level you can cut them all the same. For the remaining bottom cuts, once I've marked the corner one, as you can see here, I can just set the gauge on the cutter and then again I can run them off all at the same size and fill them in. So for the offcuts that are going to go on the opposite wall, I like to number each piece like this. Then when I come to the next wall, I'll put the corresponding pieces next to each other, just like this. I'll show you more of that in depth when we come to that wall a bit later though. Okay, that's the bottom half of the shower all done. As you can see on the plan there, I'm going to move across to the basin wall next and tile that half. I'm spreading mainly the top here as I want to get a nice level line across the top connected to what I just tiled. I'll also remove the old adhesive with a scraper, ready for fresh adhesive. If you have left adhesive for a bit of time and it feels a bit dry, it's safer to just remove it, so you make sure that your tile always has the best bond. Same as before, once I know I'm level across the top, then I can start adding my spacers and just straighten the tiles out a bit. I'll just leave the left hand side one row short as I've got a bit of trim work to do there, so I'm going to concentrate now on some hole cutting and come back to that bit later. I do have a video on this, guys, but it's pretty simple. I'll mark with the tape the top, bottom and sides of the pipes, then transfer the marks onto the tile and draw a box. Now with this one, it is covered by a vanity unit, so a box is absolutely fine. But as my hole cutters are out, I thought, why not have a go at getting all the holes out of one tile, which is extremely difficult as this is a very small tile. And it's quite funny. It does actually look like Mickey Mouse by the time it's done. So you'll see here, this is me just drawing the box, and then I'll show you next. I decided to draw the holes on the tile and just go for it. So I'll show you that now. Let's see if we can get them out. So I'll be using a 50mm core hole bit on the angle grinder and a 30mm core bit for the other two pipes. What I'm doing here first is just starting the holes, as when I add some water on my sponge, I don't want the marks to rub off. If you're using an angle grinder, I'd recommend Zamir Defenders. It can get pretty loud. Okay, now I've got my marks indented, I can soak the tile in water as much as I want, and this will help not burn the blade, and it will just help the cutting process a lot easier. And especially as these holes are so close together, it's going to be a bit of a challenge, so more water the better for this one. There we go. I can't believe I got them holes out without breaking it, and I didn't drill through my feet either, but like I say, it looks very familiar now, that face. And yeah, a bit overkill for a part that's covered, but it was great to get it off. Right, for the top trim I need to add a couple of tiles to give me something to mark to and to gauge where it needs to go. The left hand wall cut I'll put in, I'll overhang it by a tile's width plus adhesive. This is so when I put the vertical trim in, it won't show the fat side. This will become more clear in a minute, but with tile trim it looks more streamlined if you can keep the thin edge showing face on as much as possible. I also need to mitre the left edge of the top trim, so when the vertical one meets it, it will be a nice finish. Again, in a minute I'll show you this in more detail. I'll just measure it with a tape and then use my angle grinder with a metal blade to cut it. I'll show you a bit of cutting later on. So I went around next and filled all the halves into the top, then put the side cuts in and then started to wrap around the corner. And you'll be able to see here what I mean with the trim, with the miters where they come in. And you can't see the fat edge of the trim when it's face on, so it just looks very streamlined. You can see the mitre on a close up here, so you mitre the top and the vertical in, and then the one around the corner just slots in, and that's a really nice neat finish. That's what we're looking for. I then just wrapped around and finished up this little wall, and now I can concentrate back on the shower again. Okay, I've drawn my level line round there, the 1119.5, and it continues on from the other tile. Now I'm just going to spread up like we did before, and then I can start putting the wraparound cuts in. As I said earlier, I've numbered the offcuts from each tile. It doesn't matter too much when they are cut all the same size, but it's good practice when they are different sizes because of wonky walls. So now I'll just place them in next to the corresponding tile. Once they're in, I can start putting some hole tiles on the wall and making sure that I hit my all-important level line. The architrave cuts, I just use my tape to mark them, cut them off, and in they go, just like that. And just to show you these wraparound cuts again here, you can see here I've set my gauge on my cutter for the shower tray cuts, and I'm getting 2 out of 1 tile. And then I'll put those in and finish up this section. And last bit on this wall, just to show you again how I mark the cuts. You can see here it's about 12 centimetres on the tape from the architrave, leaving a joint to the tile. I'll put it on the point and I'll find 12 centimetres and then put the mark on and then score and snap it off on your cutter. And that's as easy as that. Okay, now I'm going to complete the rest of this wall, starting with a little bit of filling in there around the hexagons with the nose of the trowel. I measured with the tape from the trim that's already placed to the ceiling for the vertical trim that's about to go in. Then I just cut it with the angle grinder again. I'll put a spread line up about halfway on the wall by just measuring the tiles. Then I'll just use the nose of the trowel, set back about 5mm from the line to fix the trim. I like to get it up, get it roughly in place, Then I'll check it as I go and get everything level. And I'll literally just prod it with my fingers here to get it fixed. This cut was a lot easier than it looks. It's just basically an L-shaped cut. I've had it sitting around for a bit, so nice to be able to fix it now the trim's in. And now I can just tile up the wall and just check my levels when I get halfway up. Then I'll just measure the trim cut, just checking with the tape to make sure they're all the same, and then just run them all off. Again, put a gauge on the cutter and run them all off the same. As there be cut edges going into the trim, I like to give them a little rub down with my diamond block. That's 200 grit. And I add adhesive to the edge of the tile to make sure it's nice and secure to the trim. Mark the right hand wall cuts the same as I showed you previously. Okay, I'll just continue on, and then that is that wall all done, which you can see here. I then just continued up the wall as we've done previously, and then with my laser level here I could mark where this bit of wall needs to be chopped out. It comes over out of level quite a bit, so I just put a line up there and then got my multi-tool and just took that out so it's nice and square and level. And there we go, that's the shower tiled. It's looking really good so far. So now it's on to the other side of the bathroom. So just to show you my theory of setting out this wall, I had a few choices. Continue the tiling from the cubby hole around the corner, centre the angled wall for 2 even pieces either side, or do something with the bath taps like this. I went for centering the bath taps in the end, knowing that the pattern wouldn't match in the corner, as to me this is a visually important part, and my theory being that there is a cast iron radiator in the corner, so you won't see the pattern meeting out of alignment. So having the tiles centre of the bath, that's something when you walk into the room you're going to look at. So yeah, it just looked nice with the tap, so I went for that in the end. Okay, so I decided to get my trim cut first because I knew it was going to be tricky with this angled wall here. You can just see here I've kind of mitered it. Well, I say mitered, it's more like a 30-degree angle. And once I tile it, I can pack it out a bit more and just get them a bit more in line. Then the top would be grouted, so that'll be fine. And I've also got to miter this side because it's got an angle too. For when the radiator wall comes into it, that will also have a miter onto it, which goes into there. So it's quite a bit of technical trim. Well, it looks more technical than it is, but that's why I thought I'd get it done first so I don't have to worry about it after tiling. So yeah, another bit of trim will go across that wall with a miter on and meet it. So now I've got them pre-cut and I've just taped them on for now, just so I could just make sure they're okay. And when I come to that top row there, they're already done, so it speeds up the process. I just use my laser there to put a line round because I want to start below the trim and then put the trim on and the tile and the half bit on last. I drew a level line up from the centre of the middle pipe, and then I centered the tile, and then I put that on the line, and then I know I'm bang center of the taps. Taps, I just used a combination of marking the tiles and the tape just to get my boxes again so I can draw around the hole cutter to cut through them. I'll show you that in a second. There we go, I've marked out my boxes, so I'm just going to draw around my hole cutter now. This one is a 35mm core bit, just that's perfect for the taps. Again, just straight onto the angle grinder and straight through the tiles. And these core bits do come in various different sizes. They normally work out about £1, euro, dollar if you like, a millimetre. So a 30mm one is about £30 for instance. The angle cuts here are just marked with the tape to the line, allowing a joint again, and then I'll be cutting just straight through the tile as I'll show you here, and same again, it will just wrap around the angled bit and then we can just continue on from there. For this one, I actually mark on the cutter. It's just sometimes a bit easier to do it that way as well. And there we go, there's both pieces. And I'll put them in and show you on the wall now. I number it up, and then again the next piece goes just like that next to it. I can put the same corresponding number on it, and then when I come to that wall, that'll be the bit that goes there, just like that. And I've just continued and made a bit of progress there. Next I'll show you how I cut around the soil pipe. So I'm marking the widest point on the left of the pipe back to the tile and putting a mark there. Same to the top, putting a mark there. Then the furthest point at the bottom goes into the pipe. And then I can get an angle grinder disc or something round and just put it on the lines and draw around it. And there we go, there's your pipe. Okay, that's a bit of progress made. You can see what I mean about the corner here, guys. That's the calculated decision with setting the bath tap centered. And like I say, as there's a cast iron radiator going in there, you won't see that the pattern doesn't continue right in that little hole there. So I'm all fine with that. So that's that side literally done. I've just got to fill that hole in down the bottom there and put some waterproofing across there. And I'm going to move on to the next wall now. You can see I've wrapped around the corner just like we did previously. Now I'll spread this section up and just show you a bit of this tiling, then get on to showing you cutting around the radiator pipes, and we're pretty much there. Pen or a pencil or tape and a set square are really handy for when you're drawing the boxes for the hole cuts, guys. I also have a wet sponge and my ear defenders at hand as well. So we're nearly there with the walls. What do you think so far, guys? Let us know in the comments. I've just got that little top bit there with the trim to go, and that is the walls complete. Right, as I said earlier, I just need to mitre the corner of this trim. You can see it here now, so I've got to do a little mitre there, and then it's straight on the other two ends. So I'll get that cut off now and actually show you some trim cutting. Okay, so I've marked the length from the back of the mitre to the opposite wall, so I'll just be cutting straight to start with through there, and the mitre will be something like this, but I'll mark that once I put it on the wall next to it and I can get it proper tight. So I'm just going to use my Milwaukee cordless for this one with a metal blade on it, and it cuts through it pretty easy. If you've noticed the blue floor at this point, this is because I ran out of tiles, so I've had to do this afterwards, but pretend you haven't seen it because it'll be in the next video. Right, I'll just sand that down now with my pad. And to mark this angle, I just place it on top and mark the point to the point. I wasn't actually that far off with my guess, but yeah, I'm just going to mark it properly now, and then I'll cut that off, and then that's good to go. It's always good to give metal trim a rub down just so you don't get any sharp edges, so yeah, really recommend that as well. Now, I know this is sped up, but as you can probably see, there's grout on the wall, so I did really have to work quick for this. The tiles turned up at a very inconvenient time, but I wanted to get all the tiling done and finish the grouting. In part 3, guys, I'll show you some floor prep with laying some uncoupling matting and laying the floor tiles in this lovely basket weave pattern you can get a glimpse of here, so stay tuned for that. So, the name of the series is The Plans to Reality. So here we are. What do you think of that, guys? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching as always, and thanks for your support, it's great. Any other things that you want to know, just let us know in the comments, and stay tuned for the final part where I'll be laying the floor. Take care, see you on the next one.